call that radio. You call that radio TV. No. You call that radio TV.
This is You Call That Radio.
This is You Call That Radio TV, and we are live with the legendary David Lee Morgan. How is everybody doing? Hold on, let me just get this off the screen. Yes. Okay, we're here. It's an absolute honour to welcome our guest, writer, musician, poet, born in Berlin, grew up in USA, and now living in London. Very interesting guy indeed. David, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you too okay, because I hear you and then I hear a recording of you playing at the same time.
Yeah, maybe turn that YouTube. You might have YouTube in a different tab as well. Maybe that's what's happened there. So maybe just close that tab so that you're not listening to me. One is more than enough.
I'm getting the delayed. I think you're going out live after a delay, and I'm hearing both what's happening and the delay going out.
Do you have YouTube open in another tab? That's probably what's happening. Have you got YouTube on a different tab?
Oh, that's it. Yeah, I'll just close that.
That should be the thing.
Of course.
That's all right. A wee sound check. Oh, sound check. We're ready. We're in. Thank you very much for joining us this evening. You just did an Edinburgh Fringe show. How did that go?
Good and bad.
Yeah.
I think, like a lot of people, I really struggled for an audience this year. I hear that there were less punters this year, so there was. I heard a lot of people saying they were struggling. I was moving from the free Fringe to a paid venue, so it's always harder to. But so within that smaller audience, I had probably the best response that I've ever had. I had more people who liked it so much they went on and wrote a review on the Fringe website. So I had more of that by far than ever before. And in this new venue, there's like a 15-minute turnover time. So people just wanted to stay and talk. I had to shoo them out for the next show, because everybody was hungry to talk about this subject and felt a little bit intimidated about doing it.
Yeah, so it sort of put you in quite a good position then you had the book launch last week. Is that right? On a bit of a historic day. That's
right. Yeah. When was it? Last Thursday. So I guess it was historic because the book was launched. I'm not sure what. Yeah, of course it was.
There's some other
9/11. I completely forgot about that. It's 9/11. Like this canonized date for some people. It feels
like the world's forgot about 9/11 in general. In my algorithm anyway, because of everything that happened. So how was it? How was the book launch? Was it so as news was filtering in? Did you know before you took to the stage, or how did that work?
Oh yeah, because the Queen died too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, did you hear?
I think I'm just jinxed. I put a post on my Facebook page about this, sort of an apology, because whenever I do one of these shows, something terrible seems to happen. When I had the London preview for this show, it was the hottest day of the year, and the trains shut down, everything shut down. And even going back further, the first time I had a play produced here in London, it turned out to be the night that England got kicked out of the World Cup. And you could hear groans. I was surrounded by pubs, and you could hear groans coming mostly from outside all the way through the play.
And how would the book launch go? And first of all, what's the book called? What's it about? And where can people get it?
Okay, it's called Poems on Gender. And it's the text of the show that I did at the Edinburgh Fringe this year. And it's on a very controversial subject. I've lost friends who disagree with what I have to say, to the point of thinking I'm a fascist, transphobic bigot. And I've also lost respect for a lot of people who won't come out and say what they know is true. So this is a book, it's called Poems on Gender, and it's about sex, gender, revolution, how those all fit together. And it's kind of a defense of what I think is a basic understanding that we got from women's liberation of the 70s, that you have sex and that's the physical body, and then you have gender and that's all the bullshit that's laid on top of it, and that does not or shouldn't mean a damn thing in terms of what you're going to do with your life, what you're going to wear, music you're going to listen to, jobs you're going to do, people you're going to love, anything. That's all up for grabs. And to conflate that with the body confuses things, and has led, people to make themselves cash cows for the pharmaceutical industry. So I don't go into the details of. I've spent 2 years researching all of this, but this is much more fundamentally about the theoretical understanding that we've gotten from women's liberation, that gender is an oppressive set of social constructs, and that we should not let that influence who we are or what we want to do. I should mention that the book launch was 2 books. It was also a joint book launch with a friend of mine, Red Medusa, who's she's quite well-known poet on the circuit and in schools. People have been begging her for a book for a long time, and so she's finally come out with her first book, Breathing Water. And it was a double book launch, and a lot of people from her circuit of friends were there too, even more than from mine. And it was a powerful night. It was a powerful night because we both had powerful things to say, and the audience was there to both hear those kind of words and then afterwards to get up and speak some of them themselves.
Oh, that's just quite a good idea. So the audience gets to chime in at the end with their opinion.
We had an open mic, so a little bit before and then a lot more after. People could get up and do poems that were related, or just speak their mind. Yeah.
And is it possible? Do you have anything online, or is it possible to read a little bit of something from the lunch?
Sure.
Just to kind of get a rough idea of what it is I say, because I've not actually. I'm familiar with your work. I actually seen you at the Sonic Youth at Drygate. I don't know if I was playing that night or I was just there as a punter, but you played Drygate in Glasgow.
Is that's the venue that's embedded in a big brewery kind of?
Yes.
Yeah.
Piss up in a brewery.
That was a great night. Boy, I was really impressed. A huge crowd, and all there for serious poetry.
Yes, shouts to Kevin P. Gilday and Kat Hepburn, who I think put that one on. It was a great night, man, and I loved your stuff. So, man, if you've got anything from the new stuff, I would like to hear it. I've not actually had a chance to hear any of it yet.
Okay. Let me see. Well, I should pick something short, I think. Some of the poems are like 5 minutes long, but maybe I could do 2 if that's all right.
Yeah, man, of course you've got time. Yeah, I think we could do one, have a little chat, and then we'll do another one. Yeah, absolutely. And
okay,
if you think that a 5 minute one would be a better representation, then don't worry about it, man. There's no time limits on this. You can do what you want.
Okay, well, I'll start out with this poem is not specifically about gender. It's about method, but it's one of the first poems in the book. And I was driven to write it because I see so many people waving scientific studies around on this topic, and some of them were just incompetent, just badly designed studies that didn't prove anything. My first failed degree was in experimental psychology. So I had drilled into me how you design an experiment and how you don't design it so that you don't end up imagining you're testing things and you've got tons of. Anyway, I'll do the poem. Believe scientists. No. No. Science is not a priesthood. It's not a college of cardinals. No scientist, no matter how decorated, no matter how great their achievements, is a pope speaking ex cathedra. Believe and obey. That's not science. That's religion. We don't need a planet of believers. We do need a planet of scientists. To respect science, you must become a scientist. You don't need a degree. You don't need a laboratory. You don't need a job working at the Hadron Collider. What you need, what we all need, is a basic understanding of the scientific method, of experimental design, the importance of sample size, control groups, how to read a scientific report with a bullshit detector. Science is not down to some mad genius in a basement writing equations on a blackboard no one else understands. There is a place for that, but it's embedded in a vast social enterprise. Modern science is a product of the printing press and the telegraph and the telephone and the radio and the internet. Every advance in mass communication is a leap in our ability to learn from experience, not just our own, but other people's too. That's what science is, a systematic way of doing this. Scientific knowledge is a social creation. And as long as society is a battleground between the rich and the poor, science will be a battleground too. They say truth is the first casualty of war. But if you're fighting for a lie, you've already lost. So if you want to make a better world, if you're serious about revolution, if you want to be a soldier in the army of human liberation, you must become a scientist. That's it. Yeah, that's it. I'm done. Yep.
Amazing, mate. Brilliant. Your first failed degree. How many failed degrees have you got?
Well, actually, that was my second failed degree. My first failed degree was I went off to the University of Chicago to study philosophical psychology. And I got kicked out for taking acid. When it was legal, it was still legal when I got kicked out. It was illegal to sell it or to give it to your dog, but you could possess it and take it yourself.
So you were legally allowed to give it to your cat?
No. Actually, no. That was probably illegal too. Can't give it to animals.
Yeah, animals. Yeah. Don't give it to animals or sell it, but you could take it. So how did you get caught taking acid? Were you doing it in the classroom?
No, it's kind of a long story. It'll have to but no, I was innocent. I was just walking around grokking on everybody. We had been snowed in for most of the winter. It was like the biggest snowstorm in Chicago in 50 years. So I knew everybody really well. And the guy who ratted me out was a drinking buddy who was a resident assistant, like a graduate student that gets free room and board for being sort of a parental policeman sort of thing in a student dormitory.
A grass.
And
being a grass.
Sorry?
A grass. They get free board for being a grass, like.
Well, yes and no. I mean, I've done that one because I've gone on and done degrees. I did a PhD in creative writing at Newcastle, and I had that same job as a way of getting through. But it's less like a grass and more of a babysitter. You learn how to tuck drunk students into bed sideways so that they won't choke on their own vomit. That's part of the job. Truly bizarre. One of my bizarre experiences. I was like a babysitter for 1,200 teenage alcoholics.
Why did you fail the degrees? Was it not the right time for you, or was it the?
Well, the first one because they kicked me out.
Yeah.
Then I went back, and it was the 60s. I dropped out to join the revolution. I was almost through with my degree. That was the experimental psychology degree, and I got through the first 3.5 years of that, and then I thought, no. Time to make revolution.
And with regards to what I love about your poetry is that what makes it more difficult and more sort of difficult for me to imagine as someone that does write myself and performs is that I find that by it's easy to memorise things if it rhymes, and you don't have to stick to that rigidly. Is it harder to memorise it that way, or do you even bother having to memorise it, or are you happy just to read it off the page?
Well, I really encourage people to not memorize unless they have to, either because if they're in a slam competition, you got to memorize if you want to have a hope of winning. if that's why you're in it. But a lot of spoken word venues, they seem to kind of expect that, and you'll hear people apologizing for reading. And I think, well, some poems want to be memorized because they're very dramatic. You don't want to be looking at the paper. You want to be focused on just what you're doing. But if not, then hell, write another poem instead of memorizing the one you finished. On the other hand, though, it's memorization has a lot of value, not just for performance, but because of the fact that you're going over it and over it. You fix stuff that you thought was fine. And that, for me, that occurs long after I finish the whole damn thing, and there's something that's niggling, and I still end up fixing bits. Also, the more you work on a poem, the easier it is to memorize. And you mentioned one thing, rhyme. There's a lot of musical things, alliteration, meter, and so on, that make it more musical. The more musical it is, the easier it is to memorize. But then also a big thing, and this is really true in all of these poems, which aren't memorized, but is narrative. Does one word follow the word before? And does each sentence follow the one before? So that you're not really, it's not like you're memorizing a bunch of nonsense syllables. To do a 40-minute show of nonsense syllables would be a lifetime of memorizing, I think. But because they make sense, when you finish one sentence, the next one wants to come out of your mouth anyway. And so that's another good test of usefulness for memorizing, actually. Is if you're having a lot of trouble memorizing something, maybe there's a problem in the writing that you should look at.
That's a very good point. And you mentioned, I've got a couple of comments, but I would like to get your take on slam poetry in general, because I know that you've won quite a lot in your time. But Angela's saying that was a great poem. Alan says, yes, thank you. Epi says, logic is not a wonder. We've got texture in the house. Tremendous, David. Shouts to Bram.
Hey, Bram.
We're just talking about you, Bram, just off before we started. But yeah, if you,
but I didn't mean it. You're not really that bad.
Yeah, no, I recommend everyone checks out Bram's audio podcast called Strange Exiles. It's on Spotify and all the usual podcast places. And there's a really good interview with David in that as well. And Mark's in the house. Hello, Mark. Hello, CJ. How you doing? CJ was out at the gig at the weekend. We've seen the Moods. We've seen Nana Secret Poet. Then we was at McCool's yesterday. Shouts to Haver and Ricky Wallace as well. And David was one of our first guests. LOL OMG. Nice, good to see you. Texture. So slam poetry. That's a strange one, because Texture, actually, he was the Scottish champion at one point. You've won the BBC Slam and a few others. What's your experience of slam poetry?
Well,
and what is it? First of all, for maybe people that don't know, what is it?
Slam poetry is a poetry contest. Typically, you have 3 minutes to do an original poem, and then the judges in the audience hold up their scorecards like it's Olympic diving, like 7.8, 8.3. And it's been great for poetry, both because it got people out of the faces of the pages of their book and not looking at anybody talking. And it made it kind of going back to roots in a way, because poetry is a performance art, first of all. And it also had a lot of connections with hip hop. A lot of the popularity of slam poetry was coming out of hip hop and rap and contests. And but so basically, it's a contest, and it can be great fun. In theory, you're not supposed to take it too seriously because it's a poetry contest. But there's a lot of there's a lot can write on it if you're winning not so much in the UK, a little bit in the UK, but in the US, to win the big slam poetry championships can often get you a tour of colleges. So it becomes like kind of normal show business, I guess.
Yeah, it can be quite. It can be. I mean, I think a lot of people just go into slam is like not taking it too seriously. But then when the scores are coming out, people get disappointed if they don't win or get put out. Actually, speaking of, I was in a slam poetry contest with Texture, funnily enough, and I got a higher score than him, surprisingly, because it wasn't a very good poem I did, and his was fantastic. And then they did a recount, and it turned out that I did get beat actually, and then so I was like celebrating, and then oh no, we made a mistake there, but I won the Runners Up Cup instead. So aye. So what was it? So what was it you won? The BBC Slam, the.
I've won the London, the UK, the BBC Slam. I've won some slams at what's the New Eurekan, East Coast. I've won a few slams in the US, very few. My politics is a little too radical for US slams, and really, even the slam culture over here now, it's getting much more about identity politics and much less about revolution. So I haven't competed in a slam in a while because I've won most of the big titles. So there's no kind of advantage in it for me, except for the love of doing it. And I don't love doing it. I hate doing slams because it's so unforgiving. You can do the best performance of your life, but you stumble over a word and you lose points for it. But that's not the main reason. I hate losing, to be honest. So
that's some honesty.
And I don't have to lose anymore because I've won the what I need as far as credentials, and I'm not going to get any more benefits from it. And
yeah, I suppose as well you can't, you don't get to do, you don't have time to introduce a piece or like build a rapport with the audience as much. And you know, if the first one goes bad, you can't just redeem yourself with a better one second time. But it does make it more interesting for people who are maybe not been to one. I would recommend going as a spectator. It's good because if there's one poet that you don't like, then they're only going to be on for 3 minutes, and then someone else with a completely different style is going to be on. So yeah, I would recommend that. So let's talk about your journey, because so obviously I thought you were American, but then I see that you were actually born in Berlin. And then I know that you grew up in USA, and then I think you went back to Germany as well. So what's your background story, really?
Oh, it's pretty typical for a US person my generation, I think. I was born in Berlin because it was right after the war. My dad was an officer and was able to bring mom over, and he was running the radio station in Berlin. So I was born right after the war during the Berlin airlift, which probably 98% of your listeners don't know what that's about, but you can Google it. And I used to imagine the stork dodging all the airplanes coming in to deliver me. We moved back to the United States when I was a couple years old, so I got nothing out of being born in Germany except a name on my birth certificate. And then I grew up we moved around a lot while Dad was in the Army, and then we settled in Washington State, where I grew up in a small town. If any of you have seen an old film, George Lucas's first big hit, American Graffiti, about a small town in the desert and the football team and all that stuff, that could have been a documentary of my high school. And then Seattle, which I consider sort of my spiritual home. A lot of my family is from there. And then that's where I became a revolutionary and learned about the world. And then over here as a street musician in 1983, I came to join in demonstrations against Pershing cruise missiles. Greenham Common was formed then, the biggest demonstrations in the history of the world up to that time, I think. 1 million in over a dozen different cities in Europe, all demonstrating against Pershing cruise missiles. And of course, all the government said, well, fuck you very much, but we're doing it anyway, and put them in. And I came over with a group of revolutionaries to support those demonstrations. They came with return tickets. I came with a one-way ticket, a sleeping bag, and a saxophone. And I've stayed over here as a street musician ever since.
I heard you saying about that on Bram's podcast about the learning the rules of busking. I thought it was quite interesting about how to make more money, like faster songs is one of the tips you said to make money as a saxophone musician, or is that just in general?
No, I don't recall saying.
No.
If you're playing an instrument, yeah, people are impressed if you're playing a lot of notes. Yeah. And so it's kind of bad training in a way, because you don't want to play a lot of notes. You want to play the right notes. And so, but yeah, playing fast. Having bottlers is important. Who are your best bottlers? Your third best bottler is a beautiful woman. Bottler is someone who's collecting money for busking on the street. So beautiful woman, great, third best busker. A really, really cute child is even better bottler. They're terrific at collecting money. And then best of all is somebody that scares the hell out of you and you're afraid not to give them money. And that can be really effective.
And a bottler, for anyone that doesn't know, it comes from blue bottles.
Yeah. Back in the Middle Ages, if you were an entertainer, you would hold the sack for them to put coins in the one hand, and the other hand, they would have you enclose a blue bottle fly in your hand. And if at the end of the performance, when you opened your hand, the fly either wasn't there or was dead, they knew that you had been dipping into the collection and they beat you up. So that's why you were called a bottler.
Fair. So let's get back on topic to the new book, which is available on the website. I'll put a link in the comments for people to check it out. So it's davidword.com. Controversial subject. I don't even really know what your take on it all is. It's I just see people arguing a lot on Twitter about this stuff. I've not really got. I just stay out of that one because I don't really know what's going on. I don't know why everyone's arguing all the time. But what is people are blocking each other. People are falling out. What is so controversial about the book that you would say, in your opinion? Why are people upset at it or whatever?
I'm a little reluctant to summarize it that way, just because I've spent 2 years saying exactly what I think, and so much of the debate, the way it happens, especially for if you were to put a label on my position, it would be gender critical radical feminism from a revolutionary communist perspective. And that last bit is part of why I wrote the book, because I see other people explaining issues about sex and gender that I think are pretty good explanations, but I don't feel that they tied it in really well. So 40 minutes on that. So, well, I'd say three things.
It's too controversial. It's too controversial subject to summarise. And is that why people are falling out on social media? Because everyone's trying to sum up their opinion in the space of one small tweet?
Well, part of it is that the gender critical side, I feel that people conflate that with fundamentalist Christianity, especially in the United States, where radical feminists don't get any airtime to speak of at all. So the only people you hear arguing against gender ideology are conservative Christian fundamentalists or fascists of one sort or another. But there's actually, women are being attacked from two sides. One side is the anti-abortion, pro-Christian fascists who say men are men, women are women, and men should behave like men and women should behave like women. And then on the other side, you have people saying, well, no, sex isn't real at all. There's no real difference between male and female, or it's a continuum. So maybe your body says you're a man, but actually you're a woman. And in the middle of that are revolutionary or radical feminists who are saying sex is the body. You have a male body, you have a female body, and that's not gender. That's not your gender roles, and you shouldn't conflate those. And if you're a boy who likes dresses, that means you're a boy who likes dresses. It doesn't mean that maybe you're a girl. And if you're a girl who likes auto mechanics, that means you're a girl who likes auto mechanics. It doesn't mean that maybe you're a boy. And that's my position. It's 40 minutes of poetry on that. But I guess that's it, shortened.
Can we have a poem from it?
Yeah, okay. I'll do
Listen, don't worry about time. Don't worry about time limits. Just do the one. Do the one you think's good. Don't do it just because it's short.
I'm sorry, I didn't follow that. What were you saying?
I'm saying pick a poem, but don't worry about it being too short. I know earlier on you said I'll do a short one, but that doesn't need to be short. You can do as long as
Okay.
you want.
Well, listen, what I'll do two short ones.
Okay.
And finishing with one that is on one of the more controversial. It's the only poem I give a trigger warning for, so I'll say that now before I start. I'm going to do poem 9 and 10 from the show. There's 12 poems. So in poem number 10, a trigger warning. It's not gory or graphic or I hope in any way mean-spirited, but it is intensely emotional. That's the second poem, number 10 on transition. So, okay, these two poems, I'll just do them back to back, no intros. 9. What if capitalism walked into a classroom and gave the students a brief lecture entitled, "If I Had a Heart"? Okay, let's talk about the body. The body is a tool, but it's a product too. You have to buy your body back every day, pay for the food you eat, the bed you sleep in, the clothes you wear, but even better, we can sell you a new body, a different colored hair, shaved armpits, pubes, eyebrows, noses, piercings, tattoos. It's decoration, it's art, but we're just getting started. We can cut you into pieces and sew you back together, and let's be clear, this can be a wonderful thing to do. The body breaks down, and we can fix it sometimes. And when we can't, you die. But in the meantime, why stop at fixing it? Let's make a new body. Yes, we can. We're only at the starting stages, but the rocket's on the launch pad and we can see the destination. Think of yourself as a grain of rice. Nature made you. And used to be, we just took what nature gave us and thought up ways to make a buck out of it. But science happened. And now we own you. We have a copyright on your rice DNA, and we can go inside, chop it up, and glue it back together until nature can't do a damn thing unless we tell it to. The human personality is an infinite onion. You can peel away the skin layer by layer and never get to the bottom. The inside goes on forever. The human body is not like that. It's like a grain of rice. More complicated, same principle. We can map it and then make you buy back every damn inch of it. If I had a heart, I would pity you. We start fucking with your head before you were even born. 10. Transition. Some things hurt so bad you have to cut them out. You have to be like a soldier who digs a bullet out of their own flesh, pinches the wound together, and marches on. Was it like that for you? If I had loved you better, if I'd loved you more, you would have been stronger. Would that have made a difference? I don't know. They told me you would kill yourself. My child is a beautiful baby. My baby is a beautiful child. A rainbow, one of a kind. This is what I believe. You came from my child. You took a rainbow and forged it into a knife. You were nothing but a hammer looking for a nail. How could you not understand that a rainbow is not a problem to be solved? It's a rainbow. Did you wound my child or heal them? How can we ever know? You stormed in like a Jesuit missionary waving a holy book as if it were a sword of truth. Listen to the children, you say. You don't know what listening is. It's engagement. It's giving back. Love is struggle, not war, but not surrender. You never give up on each other. My child was a beautiful baby. My baby is a beautiful child, a rebel spirit, a revolutionary. This is what I believe. The body is the foundation. When the body dies, the music stops. Physical transition comes with a lifelong cost. So of course you would try to avoid it, not at any price, but that's where you would start. How could you not understand this? We all sing the body electric. We all sing out of tune. Perfect harmony is boring. Rules have teeth. Rules have claws. But even the harshest rules make a beautiful sound when they're broken. We should break rules, not bodies. Bodies are a fact. We give them meaning. We build on them. We can make whole castles out of fairy tales and logic. But the fact remains. My child was a beautiful baby. My baby is a beautiful child. Always and forever. That's it.
Brilliant stuff, man. Brilliant stuff. And you can, if you want to see the rest of the book, you can order it online right now at davidword.com. Davidword.com. Amazing. So, aye, man. That was the Fringe, and at the end of the show, obviously at your book launch, you had an open mic where people came on and they maybe did some relevant poetry on the subject, or just talked their opinion on it. What opinions were people coming up that might be different from yours?
Now, online, on Facebook, on Twitter, places like that, there has been, but as far as the poetry shows, no. And I mean, partly that's that the other side, the gender ideology doesn't want to debate on the whole. They think that's giving in to fascism to even debate these questions. But also, and more so, I think, because I perform these for people that I would have guessed would disagree with me and who would, think J.K. Rowling is a fascist. But they don't disagree with these poems. And I think a lot of the disagreement comes from them not getting gender critical feminism, which is all about separating sex and gender and saying everybody should be free to be what they want to be. And they misunderstand. They think that they're talking to Christian fascists who think men should be men and women should be women a lot of the time.
And what do you make of, like, is it Graham Linus, the Father Ted guy?
Yeah, Graham Linus, yeah. Well, I think all of these people, they're pretty courageous. And I don't agree with everything I could run down a list of these people and I don't agree with everything pretty much anybody says. But the drift, which is that sex is one thing and gender is another, the drift that women have a right to, there's three issues. One, I've already explained, the general theoretical one. The other is, do women have a right to have spaces that are separate from men? And then the third issue is the one that second poem was about. It's about therapy for kids who have gender dysphoria, and whether you should just affirm it and put them on a pathway to cross-sex hormones and amputations, or whether there should be therapy that investigates the whole child, as is now recommended. That's why they're shutting down the Tavistock Clinic in the UK, and why Sweden and Finland and France they've stopped doing a lot of gender medicine on children and said, no, we should be focusing on the whole child. They have issues, a lot of different issues, from being gay to a higher rate of autism, a higher rate of kids who have lived in care, a higher rate of kids with things like schizophrenia. And all of these things should be investigated, the whole child. And that's what's happening now. And you've gotten me off talking on the issue again instead of on the poetry of it. Sorry.
No, that's all right. That's all right. No, it's interesting, man. It's like I've not got any strong opinions on it. I do see people. I can see people making valid points on both sides, but it's just something I've just sort of stayed out of because I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about any of it really. But we've got Lou's in the house. Hello, Lou. And solidly brilliant, says Angela. Absolutely brilliant, says Angela Doherty as well. And yeah, if anyone's watching this that would like to come on the show and debate the subject further, then the door is open. We do. I also want to give a shout out to Henry Normal, who's going to be on the show on Monday.
Yeah, go Henry.
Yeah, an absolute legend. You know, for people who don't know, great poet, but also co-wrote the first season of Royal Family. Alan Partridge, Tony Farino, Red Dwarf, Baby Cow Productions. So an absolute legend next Monday on the show.
What did he have to do with Red Dwarf?
I think Baby Cow Productions brought out the newer season.
Uh-huh.
You know, I think it was redone a couple of years ago. I think maybe about 5 or 6 years ago. It made a comeback. So I think he was. I think he oversaw the script production of that or something like that.
Oh wow, cool.
So yeah, so I'm looking forward to that. I think he's got a tour in October, so he's coming to Glasgow in October. So I just seen that he was playing Glasgow, and I just sent him a wee message, and he was up for it. So I'm excited to get. And the Mighty Bush as well. He was involved in that as well. So I loved the Mighty Bush when I was younger. So I'm looking forward to that. Some amazing shows there.
Great.
Yeah, man, looking forward to that. So with the regards, what are we getting more shows coming up?
Shows. I'm doing a few things. I'm doing the Newton Poetry Festival. I was going to be doing the Morecambe Bay Poetry Festival. It's the first one ever. They've got a huge lineup, and it's going to be terrific. And I can't get there from London. I'm short of a 7-hour bus ride, and I'm too old for a 7-hour bus ride. But you can't get trains, planes. But I'm not going to be doing that one. But it's going to be dynamite if you can get to Morecambe Bay. Swim, walk, whatever. It's going to be brilliant. And I've got a couple other things like that. I do a show. I do poetry at the Bengali Folk Festival in Leeds every year as well. They've been inviting me back now for almost 10 years. There's amazing amount of Bengali poetry and culture in the UK. And the events they put on always have a really strong outreach to people from other countries, England, Scotland, Wales, Ireland, of course, but also people from South America. And they have a very internationalist outlook. So I'm quite lucky to have a connection with them and get to do shows with them quite often.
And before you go, I would like to ask, how's the mood down in London with everything that's going on just now with the Queen and stuff like
that? I'm the wrong person to ask. I try and avoid all that stuff. I think that, I was just hoping the Queen would die when I was out of the country so it wouldn't mess up all the TV. I don't have any good feelings for her. I don't have any bad feelings. She's the head of she is the titular head of a bloodthirsty imperialist empire that taught America all of the evil shit that we do now. We learned it from you guys. You guys, I say that loosely. I know you're Scottish, but plenty of Scots were building the fucking British Empire too while they were being trodden over as well. But yeah, so I see how many other menus I'm making here. But yeah, so she's the head of that, but she's just the head. It's not like she ordered any invasion. So I don't get at the point of like saying, rah, the Queen is dead, because she's not really relevant, but I don't feel any sadness for her at all. And I'm allergic to patriotism. I feel the same way about, talk about the founding fathers and stuff in the United States. What about the founding mothers, I don't believe in patriotism. So as far as I can tell, some people are glad the Queen's dead. Some people are really heartbroken, and a lot of people are kind of, and that's where I am, kind of.
You just don't care. Just don't care.
Don't care. Yeah. Same. 4th of July, American flag. Don't care.
Yeah. I think the general feeling in Scotland's been a wee bit of that, but I have been surprised that some people's reactions to it, some people seem surprisingly upset by it. But I mean, I think you've got to realise there's been a lot of there's been a complete propaganda campaign our entire lives on television to somehow make people feel like she was relevant. But yeah. I know that it was supposed to. For me, it's just strange. Like people are being warned to stop taking Paddington Bears and marmalade sandwiches to Buckingham Palace. Gigs getting cancelled, football matches getting cancelled, and work's not being cancelled. People are still having to go to work. So it's. One of the theories that I was actually talking to one of my friends yesterday. His theory was that the reason that football, because it's predominantly working class. Is that maybe people would boo, or maybe there would be some chants or whatever that maybe would go out against the PR campaign or something like that, because things like ballet and opera still went ahead. We would just be a minute's silence. So I don't know if you have an opinion on that. Do you think that's the case?
The moment of silence, or
well, just the fact that certain events, and like I know people that were running gigs and festivals have had to cancel because of it, and football matches get cancelled, but things that are more sort of like ballet, opera, they went ahead just a minute's silence instead. So it's not like, I mean, everyone's still having to go to work. It's just supermarkets playing sad music and stuff like that. It's just a bit odd, I think.
What's your take on? I'm not sure you're old enough to have been around much when Princess Di died, but my impression.
I was a child, pretty much a child when that happened.
My impression is that the country shut down more for the death of Princess Diana than they have for the Queen. I could be wrong about that. It could just be the circles that I was in then.
Certainly not in Scotland, I don't think. I mean, it was obviously a huge news story. I think there was a bit more empathy for Diana dying, perhaps, if I remember it rightly. I don't know, but yeah, the country didn't shut down in Scotland. I seen somebody in Reddit the other day saying, I'm visiting Scotland for the day, will there be anything to do on, but yeah, I mean, the pubs will be open on Monday, I'm sure. So if you are visiting Scotland, I wouldn't expect it to be too different, to be honest. Mark McKinnon saying rugby and cricket was still played, but they cancelled boxing right then. Andrew says getting forced into singing the national anthem at venues is not right. I don't think that anyone's going to get forced into singing the national anthem. I mean, I've never heard. I suppose you can sometimes hear it at certain things, maybe rugby matches. Maybe I was asked. Games, maybe Rangers games. I don't know.
Go ahead.
Maybe Rangers games. People can correct me if I'm wrong on that one. I'm assuming that some Rangers fans might sing "God Save the Queen." It's not a very popular song in Scotland because there's a line about crushing rebellious Scots, which kind of puts people off it a little bit.
You would think, it would. I was asked to sing the national anthem at a basketball game once. I was in a community theater back in Eastern Washington, making a real hash of my role, actually, total failure. But and so they asked me to sing at the national anthem. In America, all sports events, they sing the national anthem. It's much more regimented.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's like they always have a famous person, like the start of the Super Bowl or anything that seems like a really big deal. But I mean, I think in general, America's just got a sort of strong. I don't know. Although I haven't seen it, the patriotism that we're seeing just now is just. I don't know how many of these people are real. I mean, you see people are singing "God Save the King," and people are outside Buckingham Palace doing that and stuff. It's happening just now. Apparently, the coffin's getting moved from Edinburgh. Like there's a procession or something in Edinburgh. I'm not quite up to date, but there was some hecklers, there was some booing, and the BBC have edited out the booing. And there's some hecklers that have been arrested. I think one for having an abolish the monarchy poster. I don't know if there's any more to that than that, or if that was all it was. If that's the case, then that's absolutely outrageous. Because I mean, that's what free speech. Surely you could do
from
that.
The news. It looked like that was the case. That's all they did was they had abolished the monarchy in there. They also
someone also heckled Prince Andrew as well, specifically. And I think he was hit. I seen him getting knocked. The protester getting knocked to the ground. I've always seen someone's mobile phone footage. So I don't know what he did or what he shouted. I don't know if anyone can enlighten me what happened. But I just seen him getting like a guy saying "get to fucking the police," arresting him.
Well, if anybody deserves a heckle, it's Andrew, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I mean, he got.
the
I mean, that's another
sleaziest.
thing. I mean, it's like the Queen gave him £12 million for hush money just a couple of months ago. So it's just, I don't know. But yeah, it's obviously people just say it's not the right time to talk about it. But I mean, I suppose it maybe is time to have those conversations about to abolish the monarchy. I think it's a reasonable time to have a conversation about that before you get a new one coming in. But I mean, it does seem so outdated, in my opinion. It just looks it's a bit ridiculous. Yeah, Lewis saying they should have let the monarchy die out with the Queen. Yeah, she had a good run. Maybe just end it there. And I know people always say things like the tourism that they bring in, but I think if you made Buckingham Palace a museum where people could walk around it, I'm sure that you'd still get tourists. Also, the same people that talk about the amount of money the Queen brings in tourism are also the same people that tend to not like foreigners or immigrants or people who visit the country.
That's true.
Which I find is a wee bit ironic. And it was what they're going to do as King Charles, which is really difficult to say, is Prince Charles going to join another country as a free agent and become King of Germany? It's not like they're going to go somewhere else and the tourists will go elsewhere.
That's how they came to England, wasn't it? Because they started in Germany.
Yeah,
that family.
They transferred. They got a wee transfer back in the day, but I don't think that they can get a Bosman ruling anymore. But yeah, so it was just interesting to see what London's like, man. So obviously we just, you're only seeing things through the lens of like the news cameras. But I did see one video of a guy who was quite obviously out his nut. In fact, let's see if I can find it. He went to Buckingham Palace and he didn't seem to. This is like what. Yeah, but it's hard. It's hard to. I just rebellious Scots to crush. I like rebellious Scots. I think rebellious Scots would be a good name for a poetry night. Let's see if I can find this wee clip.
The other thing that happened while you're looking is that they had there was a procession. Oh God, I can't remember. There's so many victims now. So many people have been murdered. So a kid has just been murdered. Young black guy has just been murdered in the last 4 or 5 days by the police, right? And there's a demonstration about that downtown on Saturday. And the television had that demonstration as a procession, in a memorial procession for the Queen. They eventually took it off the air and apologized, but it was this giant procession of justice for I'm sorry, I don't remember his name. Someone hopefully will type it in here, but
let's see this. We'll put this on. So this is a guy who I think was just getting wasted, and he lived nearby, and this is. Sorry if the volume's a bit quiet, but it's a bit of a bad recording.
Just explain why you're here. It's the middle of the night in London, and yet we're still gathering here.
I came home after a work event, and I turned on TV and I saw you. And I thought, hold on a minute, something's happening here. So I came down to see this, be part of it.
I'm sure I'm not the reason why you came here.
I mean, this event, yeah. And realising that people were here
and you wanted to be here as well.
Yeah, I did, yeah. 5-minute walk. And here we are. A lot of diversity going on, which is good and interesting and beautiful, really, isn't it?
Thank you. So a lot of people here, and like I say, as you were saying, historic moment.
Yeah, so that guy just seems to have just been stumbled across. He's stumbled across it.
Yeah. Well, better him than me.
So there'll be no Buckingham. You're not be reciting poetry outside Buckingham Palace or anything like
that. Not likely. No.
No. What is cultural hegemony? Do you know? Are you familiar with the phrase cultural hegemony?
Yeah.
Could you give us a bit on that? Because I find that quite interesting.
A cultural hegemony. Okay, well, especially this comes up with Gramsci. It's an Italian communist philosopher who talked about cultural hegemony as a really important part of bourgeois control of the working classes. It's not mainly about armies and the police. It's about dominating the institutions of education and the newspapers and the media. And that was also picked up by a philosopher, Louis Althusser, who talked about ideological state apparatuses and apparati, whatever. And again, this is about how much of state machinery of domination is not about police, but is about culture and is about controlling things. And then you have that same idea applied to imperial power. So like one of the things that the United States has going for it, and England secondarily, and primarily originally, but secondarily now, is American culture, Hollywood culture, the English language, Shakespeare, and that cultural domination that the West has is a product not just of the cultural people working in those countries, but the guns that, you know, spread British and American and Western power around the world, and with it travels culture. Same way like Napoleon had a big influence on European culture up until Waterloo.
What do you think that this cloud is actually the Queen saying goodbye?
That must be it. How could I not have seen that? And there's her hat, and it looks like she needs a shave there on the one side. But
yeah, I'm actually going to do. I'm going to do. I'm going to do a wee bonus show maybe tomorrow or Wednesday, just getting some of the weirdest reactions to this, because it has blown me away a little bit. It's you know, we slag North Korea for the sort of forced outpouring of grief, and we slag, you know, Russia for jailing protesters. So I just find it really interesting.
Well, is it a big deal here, though? My impression is that it's not. It's that there's a knot of people who are really a small number who are really gutted, and then there's a much larger number who are kind of, oh yeah, she's kind of been around all the time I've been here, so it's kind of the end of the era, and we should be nice to people about it anyway. But it just doesn't feel like. I imagine that when George II died, was it not George II? Charles II, whoever died just before and made her queen. Who was it? I imagine he died. It was Edward, wasn't it?
It was a little bit before my time, and I'm not really that clued up.
I think it was a big deal then. I think people were really.
It's interesting, really... though. I think you're probably right. The majority of people don't give a shit, like yourself. But I suppose the same with all internet arguments. You know, when you were having there was lots of wild debates during lockdown and stuff, and various topics. There's usually someone on the right or someone on the left, and you're hearing the sort of most extreme voices that come out, and most people just don't care, and they just want to get on with their lives. So I think that's the general. But through the lens of television, it does look quite mad right now.
Well, another thing about passing of the monarch now is that if you go back mentally, obviously neither of us were alive then. Well, I come to think of it, but just barely. But when Queen Elizabeth took over as queen, the Church of England had full churches on Sundays here still. Everybody, you know, Church of England had congregations. Now they just have big empty churches. And I think that probably just that alone makes the coronation, the passing of from crown to crowned head, a much smaller deal, because you don't have all these churches talking about it.
Yeah, it was almost like the Queen was part of God. Like maybe Queen was maybe second to God almost. You know, it was like that was the pecking order. It was God, then it was King,
Yeah.
and then it was country. So it was like kind of like they were in the same team. So yeah, I agree with that. Beethoven at the time adored Napoleon for being a self-made man. Oh, actually, that reminds me. I heard someone saying, just when you were talking about the church thing, someone was saying that they might not even use the church this time round because of like diversity and stuff like that. And I reckon that if you could see if someone was to create one of you can try this, create a Twitter account, and even if you've only got 3 followers, and you say that they should hold it in a mosque for diversity, and I reckon Piers Morgan would in talk radio would discuss that at length. That this woke nonsense went so bad that they're having the procession or the coronation in a mosque. I reckon they would discuss that. I think
Probably would.
And it's this woke nonsense got so bad that they're making the Queen a man now. Just leaves things as they are. I just stole that joke from someone else, but yeah, thank you very much. If we're talking about I just wondered what the general sort of word on the street in London was, and it seems pretty much similar up here. But thank you very much for joining us, man. I mean, do you want to see us out with one more poem, or?
Okay, sure.
We'll do one. End it with one more poem, mate. That would be great if you could. And I'll put it one more time, guys. If you we want check out David's website, davidword.com, where you'll find all the links to social medias, and of course order the new book if you're enjoying what you're hearing.
Okay, well, maybe I've got a poem up here called Slam, so I thought maybe I'll do that one since we were talking about slam poetry.
That sounds fantastic, mate. Take it away.
Okay, Slam. There's a new, I have to say, there's a new, slam, normally you judge it on the quality of the writing and the quality of the performance. And there was a proposal to have a third criteria, which was the quality of the audience reaction. So this is a poem about why that's wrong. 1/3 the writing, 1/3 performance, 1/3 the warmth of the audience reaction. The fundamental problem with these rules is that poetry is 1/3 magic, 1/3 true, and 1/3 fuck you. And that's including the funny, likable, lighthearted stuff. If it's good, it's got a hard core of, this is me, that's you. What are you going to do about it? If you luck out, your shit might be sweet and funny and lovable because you're sweet and funny and lovable. But what if you're an asshole and you want to write poetry? Then you got to write asshole poetry, or else it's just going to be doggerel. You respect the audience. You don't please it. So let the judges hold up their cards and show what they think, not what the audience thinks. We already know that. And we all got to take a turn on that stage. It's a difference of opinion that makes an education. The great plays of Greek antiquity were all written for a contest. Just like us, we could learn so much. But the best, maybe the only way to perform a poem is not to perform it. When you're hurting inside, you don't try to cry. You try not to. If you write poetry because you got to, there is no performance. It's all writing. There's nothing else. Give love to the poet, they say in New York. But we don't want your love except but I don't want your love except in my worst, weakest moments. I want to go out into the desert where there's no love or hate, applause or laughter, only the words. And the words do what they do. And after you hear them, maybe you don't want to yell and scream. Maybe you don't want to jump up and down. Maybe you just want to get your breath back.
Brilliant stuff, David Lee Morgan. Go to the website, find out more of his work there. Order the book if you can. We are back next Monday for Henry Normal, as I said earlier on. And this might be the first time we'll be doing it live from the new studio. So if you've been thinking about becoming a patron and supporting the show, now would be a very good time because I'm been doing I'm having to get new equipment, so we've got everything set up. So if you've been thinking about becoming a patron, you can support the show either by becoming a YouTube member by hitting the join button on YouTube, or patreon.com/you call that radio, or ko-fi.com/you call that radio if you just want to make a one-off donation. But all going well, this time next Monday, I'll be talking to Henry Normal through the computer because he's down in England. But From then on, we'll be able to do live face-to-face interviews and have live sessions from the studio. So I'm absolutely buzzing to finally be there. I've been trying to do this for so long. Get me out the house. So, any plans to come back up to Scotland? Anything in the book yet? Or maybe next year, Edinburgh? Is Edinburgh Fringe, did that put you off this year? Or are you going to try and do it again?
That's my life plan now, is that I write a new show every year and then take it up to the Fringe.
Amazing.
And do it and polish it and then publish the results after the Fringe. So yeah, I've already started working on my next show.
Amazing stuff. And I think like you said, there was quite a few people struggled. I mean, music festivals suffered, Fringe suffered. You know, everyone's still getting back to some sort of normality. So that'd be good, man. Hopefully by next summer everything's a little bit more normal. Well, you never know, do you? You just don't know. If you're saying thank you, David, still love Crazy Santas.
Oh, thank you. One of my best poems, yeah.
Angela says, all about the words, brilliant. Thank you for another great show. Thank you, Angela, for tuning in. Thank you to everyone who's tuned in. We'll see you next Monday for Henry Normal. And I'll maybe jump on in a day or two to get... I'm just collating some of the strangest reactions that we're having to everything that's going on in the news just now. Thank you very much, David, and I'll see you next year.
Thank you, Mark.
And Fringe.
Let's do it again next year.
Yes, absolutely. All the best, man. See you later. Bye.
Bye.
Yeah, enough respect in every aspect to the man like Mark. They love what the man talk on the radio. In case you never know. You call that radio, call that the radio. You call that radio, call that the radio. Come and say, in my name, I'll just go with the flow. In my name, I'll just go with the flow. So till you miss a mark, now go bend down low. Till you miss a mark, now go bend down low. Boom. Lot of mercy. Yo. You call that radio. You call that radio. Come and say don't you be an head man, I'll go lose your head. Say don't you be an head, me say and lose the head. Me say radio, call that radio. Straight from outer Glasgow, straight from outer Glasgow, nice enough on the studio. Come and say in my name, I'll just go with the flow. In my name, I'll just go with the flow. So till you miss a mark, now go bend down low. Till you miss a mark, now go bend down low. No radio, you call that the radio. Them man I give you miss a lot of subject, and them I think a man you can't object. So don't you ever come and disrespect. I love and respect in a every aspect.